Nachi from a mosque, and he will tell you the truth. Nachi free. Death. It's coming to get you. And it's coming to get me too, so don't think you're special. Actually, death is coming to get everybody. Rich or poor, black or white, Christian or Muslim, gay or straight. Because death is the ultimate equalizer. But dealing with death, like anything else, is all about perspective. And the reason why this video is about death is because I actually had to deal with quite a few of them last week. But don't worry, this is not meant to be a depressing video where I try to tug at your heartstrings by having my voice crack as I talk about loved ones who died, or where I get all doom and gloomy. And of all the deaths that crossed my path last week, the first one I had to deal with was my sister's death last Monday, who died of cancer. She didn't even make it to her 68th birthday. And the last weeks of her life were spent in agonizing pain as the cancer spread to her vertebrae, to her backbone. Then her husband's nephew, who was 46 years old, he also died of cancer 2 days after my sister. Then my best friend's grandmother died at the age of 107, a day after my brother-in-law's nephew, and I attended her funeral last Friday night. Then on Saturday, there was the death of Malcolm Young, the rhythm guitarist and musical engine behind AC/DC, one of my favorite rock bands. He died of dementia at the age of 64. And of course, when you end up dealing with and hearing about this many deaths in the course of a single week, it really makes you think. And my first thought was, life seems to be a futile endeavor where the ultimate payoff is simply death. But there's a bright side. As cruel and unfair and as harsh as life is, it's not even that it seems that it is. When I thought about it, we the human species have managed to improve life and correct many of the problems of nature by leaps and bounds. Sure, people still die of cancer, but there are treatments that you could almost say are cures for those who manage to catch it in time. Which, by the way, here's a quick public service announcement. Make it a point to get physicals and cancer screenings every chance you get. And if something looks suspicious to you, but your doctor says, don't worry about it, it's just a stain on the x-ray, get a second opinion if they can't give you a straight answer. Especially if they're a religious doctor who says things like, well, it's up to the man upstairs. No, it's not. It's up to us and how we deal with our health and how we inform ourselves. By the way, if your doctor prioritizes religious platitudes over scientific data, I highly suggest getting rid of them. Because nowadays, there is hope. And that hope doesn't need to come from empty cliches based on time-honored superstitions. The hope we can count on comes from the collective hard work over millennia by all, or at least most, of mankind that has put in the effort to understand reality for what it actually is. And it's those solutions that make this life worth living, at least in my opinion. Which is why I believe that problem solving, especially when it involves fighting against nature and life itself, is the best chance at meaning and purpose we can find in this life. We may not have any concrete evidence as to how this universe began, let alone why it did in the first place, which I get the feeling there is no reason why it did. It just exists. And we have no concrete evidence as to how it will end, if it ever does. But what we can count on, what we can measure and demonstrate repeatedly, are the solutions to our problems. When we manage to correct nature itself and fight something as pernicious as cancer, that's all the meaning and purpose I need to see that yes, this life is worth living. And while I don't see how things happen for a reason with some sort of destiny in mind, especially when it comes to people dying of cancer, what we do learn from those tragedies makes us better as a species. Which is not to say, see, everything happens for a reason. That's why it's a good thing we get cancer. God had a purpose after all. Hardly. Actually, I think life works more like Friedrich Nietzsche said. That which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And just like religious people are willing to believe that nothing created God because God transcends time and space and he always existed and always will, I'm willing to bet that leap of faith actually applies to matter and energy. After all, science has demonstrated that matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, but it transfers from one form to another. Which is all the more reason why we should improve this world and the universe itself, even if it takes billions of years. I know this is not a Scientology fucking promo either, okay? It seems that the atoms and energy that make up who we are somehow get recycled and they become some other form of life. In a sense, we never really die. And it seems if there is any message or purpose the universe and or life is trying to tell us is that only the strong survive. And all evidence leads to this conclusion. And the strong not only survive, they thrive. They always find a reason to live. Which is why when it comes to death, you can't let emotions such as sorrow, fear, or anger consume you. Especially since sadness, anger, and fear really just seem to be natural alarm systems to help us detect threats to our survival. And the utter pain of mourning and grieving are reminders that our time as individuals on this planet is limited. And what we do with our limited time is what ultimately makes this life worth living. And who knows, maybe death is a problem we can eventually solve. But until then, we seem to have no choice but to deal with it and figure out how it makes us stronger. Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for watching.